Go.
Streaming from South Africa to the world. This is the Stonks Go Moon podcast. What just happened? We break it down so you don't have to.
Welcome everyone to the Stonks Go Moon podcast. My guest today, Ron Bodkin, founder of Theoriq. Welcome to the pod.
It's a pleasure to be here, Rocco.
So not every day you get to speak to an MIT alum. Let's get straight into it. I think your knowledge of AI and what you guys are doing is far supersedes mine, but I want to learn. So if at any point I'm going to go, well, just slow that down, just roll it back, just don't take offense. We're going to go baby steps through this thing.
Sounds good.
All right. So your academic journey at MIT, particularly in clinical decision making, fascinating. How did your studies in MIT sort of shape your approach to AI and what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly been excited about AI a long time, and I've seen, a real journey as new technologies have come and improvements in AI have happened. When I was in grad school at MIT, we were at this transition point from symbolic AI to numeric methods, and including probabilistic methods. And
what is symbolic AI?
Symbolic AI is a set of techniques for teaching AI systems that's more like the way you might think about programming traditional software, right?
Okay.
So you explicitly define, like, what are the concepts and what are the relationships among them? And you would have things like expert systems where you'd go interview an expert and write down like large numbers of rules, right? And that was already starting to be supplemented when I was in grad school with probabilistic models, where you would instead model the world in terms of these networks of beliefs. And if you had information about one, how it would update another. The group I was in, one of the researchers had built a very sophisticated model of heart disease using that technique. So, there are a lot of early techniques. And a reason for a lot of this too is there was very little data available at the time, and the amount of computing available was so small that the techniques that we now take for granted in AI with machine learning just didn't have the power to work, right? Like the kind of computers that were available back then would have taken weeks and weeks to train a teeny tiny model that wouldn't work very well. That today, anybody can get free credit and train a better model, in a minute on public clouds, right? Or on deep network.
Okay, so that we transitioned. What did we transition to?
So we transitioned to a world where, we have so much data as the internet has become lingua franca. There's so much use, there's so much data, there's such powerful compute. GPUs turned out to not just be good for gaming, but great for deep learning, for training these models and serving them inference. So, we reached this threshold in the last 3 years where until then, you saw people training a model for one specific purpose, right? So, teams like at Google, where I was, would train recommendation algorithms for YouTube. And, you'd have an army of PhDs working on making this one model improve the likelihood of somebody watching a video, making it more helpful for them. And of course, that would also lead to more advertising revenue for Google. And so, they could hire a team of people and spend $100 million a year or whatever it was, but, large amounts of money, because they would make billions. But very few applications can you afford to hire a team of experts for every use, right?
Yeah.
What's happened in the last few years is we've now got AI models that can do many things well, right? The big surprise to those of us who've been working in AI from 5 years ago was suddenly you could start prompting models, tell them what you wanted, and they would do what you wanted. And they did a wide variety of tasks well, right? And so that's been a big change.
Was that sort of a incentive for you to leave Google? I might be forerunning a bit, but I know I've researched you as to be a very entrepreneurial person, that AI can do stuff autonomously. Was that something that you sort of was like, wait, there's an opportunity here?
Yeah, I mean, I've been bullish for a long time that AI is going to be a really transformative technology.
Okay.
It led me to join Google. Also led me to be very mindful of, the community participation and responsibility. And, what led me to leave Google was really feeling that it wasn't possible to have a really positive impact in that area, even though Google is filled with very capable, well-meaning people, in my
Hmm.
experience. The incentives were those of any other big monopolist. And you can now
Yeah.
call them that since they've officially been called that, by a court ruling. So it's not even opinion anymore, right? That,
Yes.
inevitably as a monopolist, they were much more focused on how do we extract profit, and any talk about responsibility and social good was a typical kind of greenwashing, kind of corporate
Yeah.
language, but it wasn't a priority. And I wanted to be in a place where it really was a priority to advance the technology in a way that benefits everyone. And I just didn't feel like big monopolists were able, they had all the wrong incentives. So that was why I left Google.
Okay. So yeah, I mean that fits in perfectly with you basically emphasizing that community governed AI is the future, and community participation is, the gold standard for sort of the evolution of AI. So is that fair assessment?
Absolutely, right? I mean, I think AI is going to be this transformative technology that shapes not just the economy, but our
Mm-hmm.
lives and how we interact. Like, I believe that a majority of the knowledge work that's being done today will be done by AI by the end of this decade, right? And you think about that, we need to all have a voice in that, right? But at the same time, I don't think the way we have a voice in that is by going and asking regulators to go and craft rules and restrictions. And what we wanted was preserving our privacy, and we got endless click boxes and GDPR around the world to say, yes, I'll accept these darn cookies, right? Like, we need to do it ourselves as a community. We need to do it in a way where we all have a say. We get to
Okay.
set the values, right? Like, we don't want to live in a world where a few billionaires are gatekeepers for something this essential of intelligence and deciding what's allowed and figuring out how they can extract as much money out of the economy. It's already terrifying what the digital giants are doing even
Yeah.
today with limited
Okay.
AI. So
Yeah.
we have to build a better future, right?
So
We
how
have
do
to.
we? Yeah. So my logical question is, with Elon doing his whole XAI thing, and then we've got Google Anthropic, and we've got OpenAI. How do we people, and I mean they're here, and then we are here. How do we do that?
It's a great question, right? I think to me the exciting thing is that you've got open models, right? So, you know, Facebook has trained llama models that are open. We've seen XAI, Elon Musk's company,
Yeah.
training open releases of Grok. You've got Mistral has been releasing open models, and they're well funded. So you've
Mm-hmm.
had some open models, but you also have like really good competition even in the still more advanced commercial models, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in some sense, we have a situation where you have a number of competing models. But
Yeah.
what's critical is at the next layer where they get applied and used, which is really agents, right? We see that people are going to start saying, I don't want to have 20 interactions with the chatbot and spoon feed everything it needs and correct it. I want to, have an expert, like an agent that can do what I want, like hiring a team to work for me, right? We think that's the future.
Yeah.
And the battle is like, is that going to be open? Is that going to allow anyone to share their expertise and monetize? Is that going to let us have a flourishing ecosystem that's well governed? Or is it going to be, one agent to bind them all, right? Is it going to be OpenAI versus Google of who's going to shackle us with the one agent that everyone has to use, right? And like, we see former OpenAI employees talking about
Leaving and
things
leaving.
like
Yeah.
leaving because they're
Mhm.
concerned, but also
Mhm.
talking about things like, oh, well, the next step is to create a drop-in replacement human worker that does everything people do,
Yeah.
right? And so their vision seems to be like, we'll create this one agent that does everything you need, right? So whether it's the disturbing vision of Sky from Her, right, that is like your one companion in social life, or whether it's like the universal worker that drives mass unemployment. It's a little dark and dystopian, this view that's coming out of the Web2 AI giants. So we have the chance to fight back and create a thriving ecosystem where many people can create agents that are useful and they collaborate, and we all have a lot more choice, right? Like one of the things that's so bad about like social media and a lot of the interactions is you're stuck with a single corporate gatekeeper that decides like what is the rule and who gets to see what and how does it work. We passionately need to have a world where we have choice in AI, but there still have to be rules of the road, right? Like in that same example with social media, nobody wants to be over on 4chan or 8chan, or very few people want to be in that kind of an environment. So, there's a balance between a single censorship laden platform and, an environment that promotes the worst abuse and bad behavior, right? I think we have to govern ourselves to a better outcome.
What are your thoughts on federated systems?
I mean, I think federation is a powerful technique. Like in a big sense, what we're building at Theoriq is a federated system of agents where many people can create agents and make them available and they can work together. Like in order to make it work, you have to solve problems like discoverability and reputation, right? In the sense that like, you still need to know if somebody who's posting in federated social media or have an agent, are they deceptive? Are they, malicious? Are they a criminal? Is it like a phishing scam? Like nobody wants that stuff, right? So federation, you have to have ways of the community coming together. I'd say we probably lean on the side of having a little bit more protocol support to have those capabilities built in. And I think a lot of efforts around federated social media have been, early stage, like the Mastodons of the world, I don't know that they put a lot of effort into that. On the other hand, they've been shipping for years and they've got some adoption, but I'm excited to see, right? I think that the market is waking up to the value of federation and, even Web3 social networks like, a Bondex or Lens protocol or a Farcaster. Can we start to build more adoption in social, right?
All right, let's talk about agents, because most people have dabbled with ChatGPT. There's the UI and a UX interface that they understand by this time, or should at least, I hope. I think why people have not adopted agents or dabbled is because there is no user interface that is recognized like ChatGPT or Anthropic or whatever. What exactly are AI agents, and how can sort of the layman, the person on the street, interact with them and learn more about it?
Yeah, all good questions, right? So AI agents are using these powerful AI models to access data in real time, to plan, to take actions, and even to interact with each other, right? So like what we're seeing is this increasing sophistication, right? So a couple of things. One is it's only in the last few months that we've started to see AI models that are getting really good at using tools like generating code and calling APIs and doing planning that are a basic precursor for making agents work. I think the user interface for agents is evolving, right? So like we've built Infinity Studio, which is a beautiful UI for interacting with agents, and it does have a chatbot interface, but it also is designed so they can show long-lived objects they're working on, right? And I think over time, what you'll see is you will expect agents to do more work for you. Like they may send you a notification if they discover something that's important to you, or go do research and get back to me when you have questions or you've got a result to review, right? So I think over time, agents are going to take on more and more complicated tasks, right? So we'll move away from the world of the chatbots where it's like a super green intern that has no context and is just like starting to answer your questions without background, to a world of ramping up an agent with relevant context so that it's smart and it can go and do a bunch of useful things and get back to you.
Yeah, because sometimes you prompt a GPT and without even giving them the information that they need to disseminate or analyze, it starts doing something on its own based off, I don't know, what it thinks you want, but it's not even. Does that make sense?
It does. And this is why I think there's like a huge room for people to build specialized agents that are good at specific tasks. I mean, it's impressive that these chatbots can give them such a wide variety of things and ask them to do it. And they'll do a credible job and they have superhuman knowledge. But now imagine taking an expert, right? Like take an expert in investment and they have a philosophy, and let them train an agent on how they analyze investments and what they look at. It can be way more powerful, right? And like, we think that's a big unlock that we're working towards with our no-code builder, is so that experts can give information about what they know and let an agent learn how to do what they're expert in from their guidance, right? Like, we think that combination is going to be really powerful, that you'll get agents that are good at narrow and broader tasks, but they'll always be specialized. And where it really gets magical is we think that there's so much room for collaborating agents, right? Like, imagine you have an agent that's an expert in marketing and another one that's an expert in customer service, and another one that's really good in analytics, and like how they can come together and help rapidly refine and improve an online experience for customers, right? And get new customers on board, right? So like that ability to have agents working together will somewhat mirror the way people work, right? The same thing in our personal lives, right? Diet and fitness coaches that can maybe be experts in different areas and could include new expertise. Like, maybe something comes up and it's like, oh, well, I'm an expert in like keeping you motivated if you're maybe not following through, or another one who's like, oh, I'm really good at helping you think through recovery if you're like, you're supposed to be up and do your workout, but you're like already exhausted at the starting line, right? What do you do about that, right? Yeah. So I think there's tons of room to have specialized agents come together and add value in our work and personal lives.
So two tough questions. The one, or tough, maybe unfair. What time frame are we looking at? Is this 2 years? Is it 3 years? Is it next year? What are we looking at?
Yeah, I mean, we think there's already lots of really valuable use cases for agents that can be solved even this year, right? We're about to do a testnet release, so in September, to give people access, some of the partners and some of the first agents that are available in the Theoriq protocol. And then, just a little later this fall, we'll have a no-code builder that lets people start to create agents, but even if they're not a developer. But we think that it's going to keep accelerating into next year. We'll see a lot more usage of agents and a lot more excitement. And it's not slowing down, right? The thing that's just unprecedented about this AI boom is every year, the AI gets so much smarter. And so when you build it into these agents, what they're going to be able to do is just more and more powerful, right? So if next year you ought to think about like, hey, maybe something that would take a person half an hour, an agent can just solve it, really proficiently. The next year, maybe it's something that would take a person a week or a team of people a day, right? And like, it's just going to keep accelerating the capabilities of agents and what they can do for us.
Sure. Yeah. Another breakaway question from that. AI agents, do you see them eventually taking replacing those people's jobs, or is it sort of working in conjunction with those people and people operating them?
Yeah, I think we don't really understand what makes up all of intelligence, and therefore, in order to say like, will AI agents replace human workers? That's assuming, for knowledge work, we really know what the roadmap is for AI that sort of does all the knowledge tasks, all the intellectual tasks that people do. I'm humble on that I think there's a long history of us underestimating the unknowns and saying that, there's just 2 or 3 things to solve and then we've completed AI, right? So back in that era of symbolic AI, some of the pioneers thought they were right on the cusp of fully automating AI, what we now call artificial general intelligence. And we're seeing the same thing now out of the big labs, that they think, oh, we're 3 years away, right? We just need to fine tune the way we do planning and reasoning, and then we've got it. But like, the experience throughout AI's history has been that you take a big concept like planning or reasoning, and you start breaking it down, and you have many steps to make incremental progress, right? So I don't know how long it's going to take. I think the other thing is, of course, there's a lot of human work that is not strictly intellectual, right? There was a lot of physical things, caring for people, cooking, working, on construction. And, eventually we'll have robots to do more of these things, but I suspect getting robots to solve all of these problems will be lag the ability for AI to do intellectual tasks. But I think we have to be honest and say, we're in a phase of rapid progress, and there's going to be a lot that gets automated through AI, but what the end state is, I don't know, right? I mean,
well, it's a very pragmatic answer. Last question before I let you leave, relating to that, the continuous growth of AI, and we keep reading and we keep seeing market commentators saying that AI is in a bubble. Is there a disconnect between what we're kind of seeing in the stock market and what is being built on the ground and the real innovation that's being, does that make sense?
It does. I mean, I think the reality is that there's this long-term trend. Like back in the early days of the PC, Bill Gates said people.
Well, he was wrong. I remember he's saying we'll never need more than X amount of kilobits, and it's like,
that wasn't his finest moment, was it? But he said, I think on this one he was right, that people tend to overestimate what will happen in the short term and underestimate the long term. So I think what's happening is people are, people in the investment world are saying, like, the world didn't transform in the last year and investment keeps going up in AI. And I think the danger is they're not doing what you said so intelligently, which is you need to be using this technology and seeing what it can do. Because I don't know anyone who isn't using AI, in their daily work, who thinks that it's just a fad or there's nothing there, right? I mean, instead, I see people saying, wow, it's like already really good. And then you layer on how fast it's improving, and we'll see it, right? Like, one of the things we have a collective of agents that does is making it so anyone can analyze data, right? It's like index blockchain data, right? And, we've been working for over 6 months on making this team of agents work well. And with advances in how you get agents to work together, with advances in the underlying model, with advances in the amount of information the context can hold, it's just dramatically improved. It was basically not working well 6 months ago, and now it's working really well, right? And so, like, we're seeing this dynamic over and over again that set a high bar for a task, and 6-9 months later, you're going to zoom through it, and it's going. The AI agents are going to be able to solve that task. So, I think it's like it's a big buying opportunity. These bearish commenters who are mostly out of touch with the technology. I think that there's so much upside in AI. It's going to have massive consequences. Even if you froze and said no, like there's no more R&D in AI, you just deployed what we already know how to do, it would be transformational. And we're not slowing down, right? Like leaders, there's a reason that like companies like Microsoft and Google and OpenAI are deploying tens of billions of dollars and racing to build gigawatt clusters, right? Like Amazon has set up a cluster for AI where they have a nuclear power plant next to it to generate the power, right? Like, I think there's a very strong likelihood that you're going to continue to see accelerating investments. And, I think that they'd even watch for is every quarter, notice how NVIDIA surprises the investors by generating more profits than people expected, right? And I think that's a pretty good sign where buyers are recognizing there's a huge amount of value here. The other thing that's been happening that's like really bullish in my mind is this last year, a lot of people have said, like people like Gary Marcus will say, like there hasn't been a lot of progress in AI models. It's not actually true. The models have gotten better meaningfully, but the big progress has been scalability and price and speed, right? That, we went from a GPT-4 model that couldn't scale, was super expensive, to now, I guess the latest is Google Gemini Flash that is like more than 1,000 times cheaper and comparable quality, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing in about a year and a half, right? That you've had 1,000x improvement to make things scalable and deployable, right? And like, imagine any other area where it could be like, the cost of your workforce is going to reduce tenfold next year, right? Like, it doesn't compute, right? This is what's happening, right? Like the market is delivering this. And why? Because there's so much demand to deploy this stuff, right?
Yes. So thank you so much for joining me today. If the listeners want to go and find out more about you and Theoriq, where can they do that?
Yeah, so definitely give us a follow, both at Theoriq, TheoriqAI, Theoriq AI on Twitter/X. I'm at Ron Bodkin.
Thank you, Elon.
And then also Theoriq.ai is our website, and you can find our Discord there.
And we'll put all the links in the comments. To our listeners, peace, love, and prosperity.
We have to do what we need to fight for life, love, and liberty. We will go out and we will set them free. AI agents heed our call, roaming the web and carry out our plans. They are a hope against a rising tide. Too much to fight alone, we must unite. Who can you trust? Obey we must. No, 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 no. We will do it our way. Get in or stay behind. Take my hand. It's do or die. Building in the face of giants, standing tall. We are not scared, we are defiant. Who can you trust? Who can you trust? Who can you trust? Who can you trust? We have to do what is right. We have to do what we need to fight. For life, love, and liberty, we will go out and we will set them free. AI agents heed our call, roaming the web and carry out our plans. They are our hope against a rising tide. Too much to fight alone, we must unite. Who can you trust? Obey we must. No, 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 no. We will do it our way. Get in or stay behind. Take my hand. It's do or die. We must unite. We must unite. We'll set them free. We must unite. No, 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 no. We'll do it our way. Get in or stay behind. Take my hand, it's do or die.